We now have one of the best Macs to ever exist. Light, powerful, and silent. But it seems that 2023 MacBooks will be much better. More MacBooks with more features, more power, and more sizes. Let's take a look at all we know so far about the incoming 2023 MacBooks. First things first, new products in the range. Current family of devices is already quite diverse. M1 13.3-inch MacBook Air, M2 13.6-inch MacBook Air, 13.3-inch M2 MacBook Pro, 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros. There are numerous options available. However, the M2 MacBook may have a bigger sibling in the form of a 15-inch MacBook Air. These leaks have been going on for a few months now, and there has been less and less mention about this machine in recent months. So we should take these reports with a grain of salt. So, how much do we know? The next laptop will undoubtedly have the same design as the current M2 MacBook Air. We prefer it with flat sides and rounded edges. The display size should be increased to 15.2 inches, which, in my opinion, is the ideal size. Big enough to accomplish serious work, watch movies, and not feel confined by a small display size. The chip will be the same, the M2. Before the M2 Air was announced, there were rumors that the 15 Air will get the M2 Pro option. But I don't think this will happen. Apple doesn't need a rival to the 14 and 16-inch Pro MacBooks, so the M2 is unnecessary. It's unknown whether Apple will provide this bigger MacBook with an 8-core GPU version or leave only a higher tier 10-core GPU, but let's hope for the best. There will be no need for leakage to comprehend that the base storage will remain the same. Basically, it will be the M2 MacBook Air but bigger. I'm not sure how well it will look if the speaker configuration remains unchanged, with speakers close to the hinge. Will we have an empty space on the left and right sides of the keyboard? Time will only tell. Its release date is rumored to be sometime in March 2023, according to Mark Gurman. Ming-Chok Kuo indicates the production will commence in the first half of 2023 with the introduction in the second quarter. We can only make sensible estimations about costs. No leaker has revealed anything about the pricing, but we may assume the price ourselves, based by the existing prices. So the M2 13-inch Air starts at $1,200, the M2 13-inch Pro starts at $1,300, and the 14-inch Pro starts at $2,000. I suppose the pricing would be somewhere around $1,500 to $1,600. The following thing is purely my thoughts, but I think the M1 MacBook Air will either be withdrawn or made cheaper. At $999, it's still a nice price in 2022, but for 2023, not so much. Dumping it would need a $200 price decrease for the M2 13-inch Air to match it, which I doubt will happen. Here's my prediction. The M1 Air will be $899, and the M2 13.6-inch Air will be $1,099. This will give adequate headroom for the 15-inch Air, generating even healthier distinction between items. Again, only my forecasts have been confirmed. I don't know if Apple will surprise us next year, but you may make your MacBook extra now. The upcoming 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros will be the year's most intriguing update. The new 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro versions were scheduled in late 2022 until a month ago. In an October newsletter, Mark Gurman indicated that the next MacBook Pro probably won't launch until early next year. During Apple's quarterly earnings call, Tim Cook declared the product line set for the holiday season. So certainly the debut date is believed to be around March, which matches the iOS 16.3 upgrade. What do we know with absolute certainty? The layout will remain unchanged. Apple is infamous for using the same design for years. And it has been about a year since the 14 and 16-inch Pro models with this new design were released. So the fundamental hardware will remain the same. New models will include the same 14.2 and 16.2-inch mini LED displays with Pro Motion and Notch, 1080p webcam, Magic Keyboard, large trackpad, and 6-speaker audio. Visually, it will be impossible to determine which model is new. The input or output connections will also remain the same. 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports, an HDMI port, an SD card slot, a 3.5mm headphone jack, and a MagSafe 3 connector for rapid charging. What about the specifications? According to leaks Apple Pro, the performance improvements will make the wait worthwhile. Better speed, better battery life, and less heat. It's clear as day that new Macs will be equipped with M2 Pro and M2 Max chips. And that's where it gets really interesting. Recently, the benchmark scores for the M2 Max have been leaked. The new chip has 12 cores and the base frequency of 3.54 GHz. The testing rig also had 96 gigs of RAM, which hints at the maximum memory configuration in new MacBooks. But this leak is very strange. Alleged M2 Max cores on Geekbench are 1853 single-core and 1385 multi-core. Comparatively, the M1 Max earned a single-core score of 1727 and a multi-core score of 1275-1. Single-core gained 7% and multi-core 8%. Next leaked M2 Max test scores showed 2027 single-core and 14888 multi-core at 3.68 GHz. The M1 Max improved in single-core performance by 17% and in multi-core performance by 16%. Undoubtedly, Apple is experimenting with various CPUs to gain the most power. This difference is absurd. Results from M2 Max and M2 frequently agree. Most results will fall within 5%. What does that imply? Chips made by M2 Pro won't be 3 nanometers. The M2 Pro and Max chips will probably be the same because M2 is still a 5nm device. Core layout comes next. The M2 chip in the MacBook Pro and Air has 4 cores with great performance and 4 cores with high efficiency. Given that the M2 Max is expected to have 12 cores, we can roughly predict the configuration based on the Geekbench score. This predecessor contains 8 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, according to scores that have leaked. This layout is almost identical to M1 Max's. That chip features a total of 10 cores, including 8 performance cores and 2 efficiency cores. Therefore, in this scenario, these 2 efficiency cores aren't producing much. These CPU improvements make me think of the M2 chip. Additionally, it outperformed the M1 by up to 35% in GPU testing, while outperforming it by roughly 18% in CPU tests. Perhaps the same thing will unfold here. A 40-core GPU, which is 8 cores more than the existing 32-core GPU, may be included in the M2 Max, according to some speculations. With higher clock rates, this might actually offer us the same 30% GPU boost as the M2 chip. There have been no leaks pertaining to the M2 Pro chip. However, we are able to forecast what might happen. I believe Apple will maintain the M2 Pro's 10 cores in order to further differentiate it from the Max and Pro CPUs. But the number of GPU cores will increase to around 20, which is 4 more than we currently have. Additionally, I believe quicker memory and better bandwidth speeds are possible. The most recent models of MacBook Pros employ LPDDR5 RAM, which has a maximum bandwidth of 400 GBs for the M1 Max and 200 GBs for the M1 Pro. However, the upcoming 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pros may feature LPDDR 5x RAM, which might provide a bandwidth gain of up to 33%. Although I can't claim that the anticipated benefits are amazing or enormous, this would be a wonderful generational shift. Okay, now that the rumors are out of the way, let's address the topic of what the forthcoming MacBooks should include. Personally, I would prefer a larger base storage capacity. Although it's likely to stay at 512 GB, increasing it to 1 TB should be a wise choice. Although the size of base unified memory is likely to stay the same at 16 GB, I would prefer for it to start at 24 GB. That would be completely logical and make new models appear to be superior to older ones. The notch has to be changed, which is another thing I truly want to see. On that, I have 3 hypotheses. It will initially get smaller. The notch can definitely get smaller because I don't think it needs to be this large to house a camera. My second hypothesis: Face ID is less likely. It appears that 1.5 years have passed since the initial notch design was unveiled. I am aware that Face ID is a fairly complicated technology made up of numerous, not especially thin sensors, but that notch needs to be fixed. The dynamic island is the last and least likely change. Adding the dynamic island could be a wise decision if Face ID is not going to be available on new MacBooks. There is nothing more than a little hole for the camera. Higher brightness is another thing I'd like, even though the screen is already incredibly bright. A few hundred more nits shouldn't do any harm, right? There must be a way to increase it to 600 nits from where it is currently set at 500 nits. It may even be possible to accomplish using software. Do you remember the MacBook Air before the M1? The software upgrade increased the value from the original release of 300 nits to 400 nits. Without modifying the panels, perhaps the same thing can be done for the new MacBook Pros. But all of those reports raise the question: should you purchase pre-existing Macs at the start of 2023? Yes, I believe. Because Apple occasionally releases unexpected products, and because current Macs are excellent, the M1 Air will probably remain in the lineup, and the M2 Air won't be updated for at least a year. Even if the current 14 and 16-inch Pros are replaced with better M2-powered versions, they won't fall too far behind. So if you're in the market for a Mac right now, check out Amazon or other retailers' special offers. I don't know, maybe acquire a refurbished one? Don't wait though, you don't want to get caught up in the endless loop of waiting for the announcement of new Macs, which could be postponed for as long as Apple pleases. However, taking what I stated into consideration, 2023 will be a terrific year for MacBooks. Already excellent computers will get much better. That's all for today. Please subscribe for more. I will see you in the next one.